All right, take two. Don't let them bluff you back there because you're holding all the aces. In Played As It Lays by Joan Didion, Maria is feeling disenfranchised. Maria is our main character, and this is set in the 1960s, seemingly in the 1960s, seemingly glamorous Hollywood circles. So we're dealing with film producers and writers and actors and actresses. Maria, who is part of this type of environment. Didion peels back the curtains to reveal a grimy and morally gray and bleak culture slash society. So through Maria, or how I interpreted it, Didion shows how once a person kind of steps outside of the game, they step outside of the script and begins to start questioning things, there is this ostracization that follows that can push a person to the brink. So Maria stops playing the game. So she starts to stop playing the game. That would have made zero sense. So Maria stops playing the game, meaning that out of her social circle, she is beginning to detach, ask questions, and she's starting to behave differently. This puts her at odds with the rest of her acquaintances and even more so with her husband. Her husband, shady. Maria is belittled. She's gaslit. And frankly, she is abused for stepping out of line. It was probably abusive beforehand, that was hinted at, but it's even more so when she starts to try to take some agency back. And we'll talk about agency later on in the review. She's no longer being fun. And yes, even though Maria is still engaging in a lot of drinking and consuming all types of substances, like everybody else around her, it's evident that Maria is not in the denial, or in the denial, my English. She's not in denial about why she's using these substances to mask something. Maria is attempting to dull her inner turmoil like everybody else, but she's not wearing the fake smile, and that bothers people. It is her blatant unhappiness that makes others around her uncomfortable because she's no longer faking it. I think I said the same thing like 5 times. I'm a little out of it. I'm on leave. I'm recording this. What day is it? December the 28th? The 7th. It's December 27th. I'm on leave until the 2nd, and I feel like I have 2 functioning brain cells left. I am so tired. Okay, it's like no matter how much sleep I get, I'm exhausted. But anyway, that's where that sock went. I was looking for that sock. It fell behind something. Okay. I see no one I used to know, but then I'm not just crazy about a lot of people. I mean, maybe I was holding all the aces, but what was the game? I'm just very, very, very tired of listening to you all. I need that on a shirt. Somebody get that on a shirt for me. Man, if that doesn't sum up society. Okay, the irony is people listen to me talk about stuff. My father advised me that life itself was a crap game. It was one of the 2 lessons I learned as a child. The other was overturning a rock was apt to reveal a rattlesnake. As lessons go, those seem to hold up, but not to apply. So I mentioned agency a little bit earlier, and again, in Play It As It Lays, Maria is not really a free agent. She, whether it was in her career or in her relationship, especially with her husband, she's just pulled along by other people's desires and selfish control. And even when she states she doesn't want to do something or expresses something she doesn't want to do, her desires are overridden by someone who's telling her, no, you're going to do this. I don't want to do that, Maria said. Yes, you do, BZ said. She cried because she was humiliated, and she cried for her mother, and she cried for Kate, and she cried because something had just come through her, where in the sun on the western street, she had deliberately not counted the months, but she must have been counting them unawares, must have been keeping a relentless count somewhere, because this was the day the baby would have been born. So Maria is forced to make a decision. As you can hypothesize what that decision is based on that last quote. And she's forced to make it by her husband, but she didn't want to make this decision. And it tears Maria apart in a different way. Maria's already suffering from other things. Her mother has passed away. Again, she's in these abusive relationships. But Didion's portrayal of what Maria goes through in this particular scenario is it's the word I use here in my review is gut-wrenching. It's not glamorized or romanticized in any way, and Didion is actually quite graphic in the depiction. And even so abstract in some ways, but it's very visceral and it's very gory. And Didion is showing how when agency is taken away, not just in this situation, but for Maria across the board, just how detrimental a lack of freedom really is. And then when a person tries to take back that agency, why there's such a fight. Because those in control don't want to give up that power because they don't have to. They know that they're up here and you're down here, and so they can do whatever they want to do, and there's really not much that you can do about it. You can try, but you're the one who ends up, you in the general sense of the word, is the one who ends up still at the bottom. Also, when a person, those who are in control and those who have power, it's a really good way to deflect. Because they're up here, they don't have to face the reality of who and what they are. Because they have the control. They can shape the narrative any way they want to because they're gaslighting the victim and playing mind games and being manipulative. So it keeps them in this protective almost layer through all of these games that they played. Again, the term game is quite pops up frequently in this book. So Maria and her daughter, Kate has been institutionalized. We meet Kate, and we learn this within the first couple pages of the book, are deemed insane because they are inconvenient and or they have behaved in ways contrary to how people want them to behave. So accusing someone of being insane or accusing somebody of being crazy or that something is wrong with them is, again, an easy way for others to deflect away from their own, how they have contributed to somebody else's state of being, right? So just, oh, that person's crazy, that person's insane, that person's a nonconformist, something's wrong with them, lock them up so that I don't have to be accountable for my actions about how I've treated other people or the lies that I've told them, to get them to believe something about themselves that's not true. So play it as it lays. This was my first Didion. It's hard to describe this book. When I'm thinking about the adjectives, I'm raw, visceral, melancholy, bleak, dark, hopeless. It is a very, very bleak novel. And Didion's writing is very sparse and skeletal. However, that doesn't mean that it's not effective or evocative or emotional. It can sometimes be more difficult to write this bare bones than it is to use these really elaborate, lush sentences. Because it's always easier to add than it is to take away. Her sentences are so blunt that sometimes it's shocking, but that's what makes this book so poignant and makes it, I think, stick with the reader so much. There's a reason why this is often this is really her most read book. Was this her first novel? I believe this was also her first novel. I think it is. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I'm not even going to pick that up. I'm just not going to go do it. There are some sections in the book I had to read multiple times because, again, it was written so sparsely, but there was an abstractness to it. And sometimes, so I was like, am I reading this? I want to make sure that I'm getting the symbolism. I didn't catch everything. Like I said, this demands a second read. But also, there were times she said something so bluntly, I'm like, oh, okay, she's not shy. Didion does not shy away from certain things. And she is accurately portraying a society that is listless and clearly seeking for answers, but seeking for those answers in the wrong places. It is a stark contrast from Eve Babbitt's and how Eve Babbitt's recounts Hollywood in LA around in the mid to late 1990s. Eve is not in denial about the depravity, but it's shrouded in a bit of nostalgia. I think there is a bit of rose-colored glasses, because Eve is she's funny and she's witty, and I don't think there's anything funny about Play It As It Lays. It's not supposed to be funny, and it's the underbelly of a society, and Didion has pulled the curtains back. This book stuck with me. I still think about it. I read this I think I read this over the summer. Betty read it with a friend, and I do look forward to diving into more of Didion's novels and her nonfiction. Like I said, I need to reread this book because I know I missed a lot, and I'm still marinating on some of it. And so now that I know what the narrative is like or what the plot is, I can go back and kind of fill in some of those gaps. A lot of times your first read of a book is just, what is this book about? And yes, you may get the symbolism, but the second read, once you're familiar with it, helps you to kind of pay more attention to the finer points, because you're not thinking about the overarching themes or the overarching plot or who are these characters. You already know the book, now you're just filling in the gaps. Like I said, I buddy read this with a friend, and when we met up to discuss this book in person, she just lives in the next city over from me. We read quite a few books together over the past 3 years, but this one, when we wanted to make a point, we had to directly go to the book and pull a quote, because there is something about Didion that can almost be hard to articulate when it comes to this book. I can't explain it. If you've read this book, please let me know if you have also felt that way. I'm not sure I've read writing quite like this before. I have read very quintessential American, sparse, blunt writing. So yes, it is blunt, it is sparse, it is to the point, but not like this. Like I'm reading Ernest Hemingway right now. Again, very blunt, very bare bones. It's not overly lush. It's to the point, but Didion is doing something different. And I'm still, I think, wrapping my mind around it, as you can tell. I did, however, really enjoy it. I gave it a 4 out of 5. I look forward to rereading it. And I also want to give this book props, because it reminded me of my year of rest and relaxation by Ottessa Moshfegh, which I read in 2022 and thought was just meh, okay. But there was something about it that reminded me of my year of rest. And when I did go back and reread it, and it changed. Play It As It Lays actually changed my thoughts on my year of rest and relaxation. So props. Side note, sometimes I see in comments, I haven't gotten this comment. I really do try to make eye contact with the lens, but you see people talking to the viewfinder or you see them talking to the video image. It's because it makes it feel like you're talking to a person, even though you're talking to yourself. Some people say, oh, this person's being vain. No, you're talking to what feels natural, because there's a set of eyes there. So it's not natural to look at a lens where there's nothing reflected back. So you have to, yeah. So sometimes that's why people are actually looking here, not here, because it's human nature to want to make eye contact with something, even if it's yourself. Anyway, tangent aside, please let me know if you've read Joan Didion's Play It As It Lays and how you felt about it. Did you like it? Did you not like it? And why? And if you did like it, what other works by her, fiction and nonfiction, and or did you also like from her? And what would you recommend that I read next from her? So I'm going to wrap it up there. Please feel free to like, subscribe, leave me a comment. And also, if you feel so inclined, you may follow me on Instagram, where I get up to more bookish shenanigans. I post all of my book reviews there first in my feed and in my Instagram stories. My Instagram stories is not very bookish. Every now and then I may post what I'm reading, but it's usually funny memes or things that make me chuckle. My algorithm is wild. Like it's all over the place. So I just post what I feel like posting in the stories.